We'll start this police advisory board meeting for June 20th here at 6 p.m. in 76 Morrison. I'll delay attendance for a moment here. Oh, no, actually, we'll do that first. We'll do attendance, but I'm looking to have a little latitude to do elections this evening, folks. So for the committee members, after we do attendance, we will ask folks to nominate the position of chair and vice chair, and then I'll hand the meeting over to the chair, whomever that might be. And then we have a few other additions to the agenda, but we'll do that at that time. So if I could ask for attendance, I'll just ask you to introduce yourself, and I'll start with Guido on my right here, please. Just your name, please.
Yes, Guido G. Forlani.
Okay. Paul?
Paul Morton.
Okay. Jamie?
Jamie Trudeau.
Jane?
Jane Davis from Hansport.
Okay. And Dave, please.
Staff Sergeant David Ferguson, West Hants Detachment, Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Okay, and we'll introduce our guests here in a moment, but we'll get this order of business underway. So, and we do have notice from Councillor Yanish, Rupert Yanish, who we do expect to see this evening, but he'll be late. So we do have quorum. We're going to start now and do the process of electing the chair. So what I will do is ask for nominations from the floor for the chair, and the chair will, the nominee will either accept that or not. And then I'll call for a second and a third. And if we have more than one person, we'll have an election for that position. Okay. So I will start now by asking for nominations for the position of chair of the Police Advisory Board. If there's any nominations, please.
Excuse me, Mark.
Yes.
Since Rupert is not here, can we hold off on that and do the presentation? And then when he gets here?
I really would like to, it's not my position to chair. So I really can't chair a meeting as a CAO. So I'd like to kind of push through with that if we could. We hope that Councillor Yanish is here. If he doesn't, then that's kind of the process. So if I could please, then I'll ask for nominations from the floor for the position of chair for the Police Advisory Board.
I nominate Paul Morton.
Paul Morton. Okay. Paul has been nominated as the position of chair. Paul, do you accept that nomination? Okay. Paul does accept the nomination. Okay. I'll ask for a second time if there's any further nominations from the floor for the position of chair of the Police Advisory Board. Okay. And I'll ask for a third time if there's any nominations for the position of chair for the Police Advisory Board. Okay, seeing no further nominations, Paul, you've accepted. You will be appointed as chair. So I'm happy to turn that agenda over to you, and you can conduct the nominations and the appointment for vice chair, please, Paul. Rupert.
Looking for a nomination for vice chair of the Police Advisory Board.
I nominate Rupert.
Rupert, do you accept your nomination? Second call, any more nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Rupert as well.
Okay. Third call, any more nominations? Rupert, do you accept your nomination? Great, thank you very much. Welcome aboard.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I think you have a few additions there, perhaps just clerical in nature, I think.
Okay. You got them in front of you?
I can help you.
Yeah, help me.
absolutely.
Yep.
So we're looking to add to the agenda as a standard addition to this agenda from this point forward due to change in policy from council for public participation. So that would be added on the agenda at the very end after correspondence, prior to any in-camera items, where if there were a member of the public here who would like to make a comment, they would have the ability to do so as they do at some of our other meetings. So with your permission, Mr. Chair, and the rest of the committee, or we would add public participation. And then we will discuss the next meeting date, but perhaps we can do that at the end of the meeting as we kind of get folks into a rhythm here. So I think those would be the two additions that I'm aware of. If there's any other additions, other members could add or request to have those added at this time.
Any other additions? Seeing none, looking for approval of the agenda, including additions. Moved by Jane, seconded by Guido. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Up next is the declaration of conflict of interest. When's Jamie get sworn in?
As soon as possible, if we've made a time for you to do that tomorrow or this week.
Okay,
Yeah, we will do
Okay.
that. We need to have a commissioner of oaths present
sure.
at the time of doing so. So we'll deal with that logistically throughout the week.
So any declarations of conflict of interest for this tonight's meeting? Seeing none, we'll move down to approval of previous meeting minutes, July 15th, 2024, Public Advisory Board minutes. Looking for approval. Moved by Jane, seconded by Rupert. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Up next is presentations, body worn cameras. Jamie Smith. We'll just get you to turn your light on there and announce.
Hi,
State-
everyone. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you. Can,
Excellent.
yep.
Okay,
So you can pull that forward to a little bit so you don't have to strain so much there, Jim.
perfect. Okay, great. Thanks for having me, everyone. My name is Jamie Smith. I'm the program manager for the RCMP Nova Scotia body worn camera. I've been in the position since July 2022. So we've underwent a lot of testing on body worn cameras. So I'm here today just to give you an overview. I have a camera with me if you'd like to look at it. You can play around with the buttons. You can't break it. If you can, I'd like to know about that. So as I'm speaking, I can pass it around. I can delete the photos. So if you turn it on, that's fine. We can take care of it. It will be attached to a development environment. So I'll just pass that around. And really, I'll just give you an overview of where we're at today, what the current status is, and let you know a little bit about the camera and really the digital evidence management system that we're using. Body worn cameras is a really hot topic, but there's a lot more to it than just the body worn camera. It's a lot of the DEMS, the digital evidence management system that we're using, and how that's really going to change and I feel enhance policing. So just as a bit of an overview, Nova Scotia has been part of the field test for body worn cameras since February 2024. With Axon, the cameras have been deployed to 7 detachments across the province. So we did deploy last February. Oh my goodness, it's almost coming up to a year. To 3 general duty detachments. That was Pictou, Stellarton, and Digby. And then to 4 traffic detachments. So that's Chester, Yarmouth, New Minas, and North Sydney. So then it gave us a really good idea of the sort of files we'd be seeing, what we'd be looking at as far as a workload and really being able to look at the process. I should say as well, it's a national field test that we were looking at, but Nova Scotia was one of only 3 provinces that were selected. So Alberta was selected. They had 1 detachment, and then Iqaluit was also selected. And we had onboarded about 70 members for that deployment, and they're still using the body worn cameras today. So it was a successful field test. So we did begin implementation across the rest of the province. So we started in November 18th, and now we're halfway done phase 2. So we've deployed to over half the province. Things are going really well. Hopefully you can echo that. Later, we have a member wearing the body worn camera. One thing I'd like to say about this project, my background comes from training. So I would train the members on systems that they use in the vehicle. It was always things that I thought were important or, things they need would make their lives easier. And when it came to training body worn cameras, I was expecting a bit of hesitation from them. And I think that's normal. You're going to be recorded. What does that feel like? What is it going to look like? And I am pleasantly surprised at how it's been received by the members. I thought there'd be at least, a handful at each detachment or people would be more uncomfortable, but it was the opposite. I found detachments when we were going around doing our initial visits, they wanted to be prioritized. They wanted to know how their detachment could go first. They want to get the training right away. They wanted their hands on the cameras. So That makes our job a lot easier too in my unit. So yeah, I think that's important item to note. Our phased in approach across the province, we anticipate it to be complete in April. So next week, we're training in Yarmouth. Halifax Regional Detachment will be the last detachment that's done in HRM. And we use the same police system that HRP uses. So we're doing a lot of work with HRP. We've already deployed a few detachments in like the HRM area, but we just went slowly because they use a different records management system. But yeah, they're going to be onboarded in March, and that'll be the last detachment. And then February, it's a lot of Cape Breton. So we're hoping the weather treats us well there. And then we deployed in West Hants area here just recently in December 2024. Yeah. So a bit about the training. All the members are required to do online training. And the online training consists of Agora training, which is the RCMP database we use, like online training platform. And that's really more about the policy piece of body worn cameras. They also have to do online training on the Axon Academy, which is more about how to use the camera, how to go into the digital evidence management system. So they do those pieces of training. It's about 2 hours in total to get that training done. The members don't get a camera until they attend an in-person session. And this was a part of the reason we did the field test to determine what sort of training do they need and what do we feel they require. When we do our in detachment training sessions, we get them to log into the DEMS. We show them what it looks like. They have hands on camera. We get them to mount the cameras. They get to use some of the apps that I'll tell you about. So we make sure, we also review the policy. Like we make sure they have a really solid understanding of all the pieces and that they use it and they're comfortable. And where we're able to, I have my team of coordinators. They actually will work in the detachment and answer questions as the members start to use the cameras. So I alluded to the Capture app we were talking about. It's not just body worn cameras that we're rolling out. It's also the Capture app. So our field test members didn't use it, but in the fall, we got approval to roll out this app. So it's all the members are provided with a work cell phone. And this app has to be downloaded and it only works on the work side of their cell phone. There's a Capture app and then a View app. So the View app allows them to see the view of their camera, which is really great. We didn't have that initially for field tests. So they can log into their app and they get a good idea of exactly what they're looking at so they can make sure their camera's positioned well on their vest, and what they're going to see when they go into a call. So they're not always going to have to use that, but it's good at first. They could also, if they're on scene, they could use the View app so they could have their phone in their hand. They could remove the camera and say, for example, he could take that off and look underneath a car or in an attic space if it's safe to do so, keeping in mind they'd have things in both their hands, which wouldn't really be good for safety. But if they have coverage and it was safe to do that, they could use the app for that purpose. They can also use the app to identify their give it an ID number, give their evidence an ID number before it gets sent to the DEMS, which is helpful. A few of the features, so that's a bit about the Axon View app. A few of the features of the Capture app are photos. So they, again, on the work side of their phone, if they're in this app, they can take photos. The photos remain in the Capture app. It's not just on a photo reel, and it's on the secure side of their work phone. So they take the photos and they can upload it. They can enter the ID number, which we use. The ID is the same as the file number they would use in either PROS or in the city. It would be the Versadex, the police system that we use for them to type up their files. So they can upload it direct to the DEMS from their phone. It might not seem like a very big deal, but previous, you'd have to find the right connections. There are so much security. It makes it difficult previously to upload data. So it really simplifies it. They also have the capability to use their phone to record an audio statement through the Capture app, which is also time saving. Within this app, there's automated transcription features, which are also a time saver for audio statements. And they also have the community request. So the community request is probably one of the favorites. At every event where I'm able to participate in training, we let the member know about it. I think just about everyone can think of an example where they could have used it. So for an example, if they attend a school and an event happened at the school, they could take someone's phone number or their email address, and they can enter it into the Capture app via the community request, and it will send them a link, and it's verified RCMP. They click on the link, and then they can just upload their photos or video right there. The members already added the ID, and it goes right up into the DEMS. So it's very time saving. Bringing body worn video, it's a new piece of evidence to manage, so it is additional work. It's something that the member's going to have to do now that they didn't have to do previous. So it's going to take time. But as we evolve the DEMS, and the idea of it is to have everything in the DEMS so it's easier for them to pick up. So previously you could have an impaired file, for example, if there's in-car video, there could be cell block video, there could be something from the interview rooms. They'd be going into different systems to manage it, to gather it, to download it, to view it, to put it together in a disclosure package. Our idea is that future state, we don't have in-car video in there now, but we're looking at it nationally. And having audio, video, what else could we add to this package where we've already given them the body worn camera and the photos from their phone and the audio statements? We just want to add to that so that it makes it faster for them. We're also working with the Crown to look at disclosure. What are our timelines? We're sort of building that package of what it looks like. And we're trying to make things easier for the member. My team, they build the case for the member. If they just put a redaction request in, they put in the request through the system they're already using where they're writing their police files. So they put that request in, and it comes to my unit. The coordinators, they complete the redaction request, and they build the case based on all the evidence in the DEMS system that exists, and then they share access to the case once it's complete with for the member. So it makes it easier and faster for them to share. So it's like anything that's new. It's a bit painful in the beginning. It's a new process, and we're trying to make efficiencies as we can, but it is more work for them. But in the end, I can really see it saving them time and getting our members back on the road. So that's a little bit about the overview on this piece. The camera itself, just for everyone's awareness, and I've got someone to demonstrate it here. So you can see when it's flashing green, it's not recording. So the camera's always in like this buffering state. It's got this 30 seconds. So as soon as he double taps that and presses the button, it will turn red, and then you'll know it's recording. The buffer picks up 30 seconds of video only, not the audio. And it's important for it to do that in case something were to happen or and they hit that button, and then you can capture what happened, what led to that event previous to you hitting the record button. A little bit about access. Members are only able to view their own video, so they can't view each other's videos. A lot of people are worried about the privacy, who can view these videos. It's actually very limited. There are a few people at the NHQ team who can view the video, and that's only on the top tier who have admin access. It's not even people like from our project team who have the access. It would be myself, my coordinators, and we're only able to view the videos. We have access. We're only able to view though if we get a redaction request or we're trying to locate a video. It's got a very detailed audit trail, and I love that about it. As someone who's come from a background of working with police systems, I really appreciate the audit trail that it has. So supervisors can view all the videos of the members that fall on their team, but they can't view other members and other detachments. So it's based on an evidence group. So that would be the where you're located from and the command hierarchy. So what level do you have? So we have supervisors and we have end users. So the end user, so if say, for example, if two members were working on a file together, they can't see each other's videos, but if they deemed it was necessary to share that information, they could share it, and all that is audited. So if they're working on the file, one member could share access with another member. And the supervisors are able to view all those videos as well. Okay, I already mentioned the detail audit trail. a few policy pieces. Once issued a body worn camera, members are expected to record and attend calls and use that body worn camera. I can say, having used this product in field tests for almost a year, we haven't had any issues. I've had one technical issue where a camera wouldn't upload. We were able to use another camera. It was giving a software error. Another one, the camera was damaged. It was on the roof of a car. It went 100 kilometers an hour. We thought it was damaged. We tested it for safety purposes to make sure it was working, and actually it worked out well. It was still working at the end of it. So they're very rugged and reliable cameras, but we have a process in place so that if something were to happen to someone's camera and it didn't work, there are spares assigned at each one of the detachments. So members can't just pick up a spare. It would have to be a supervisor to assign the spare. Or we tell them to get another camera. We'll reassign the video later. So once they're trained, we want them to always be wearing a body worn camera. Another thing relating to privacy is the camera can't be used for surveillance purpose. So the members are only turning it on if they respond to a call for service. So we like to say seatbelt off, camera on. So they're not just always driving around and patrolling and having it recording. They're not able to do that. It's only if it's in the course of an active investigation. And they will only be activating when necessary according to policy. And one more thing I wanted to note is we actually started off when we started in February, we started with the AB3 cameras. We've already upgraded. So this is a lease service with the RCMP. It's a bit different. Typically we go through, we do our RFPs and our statement of works and we get everything ready. And by the time we actually get the equipment, it's outdated. With this lease service, the members have already gone, he's wearing an AB4 camera. So we've already updated all our field test users. We're all using the AB4 camera. And that's so that once we make some enhancements, we can turn on features such as live streaming, live track mapping. As soon as we get to a place, we have to develop the policy for that. And that will be like a national standard. And also the automatic activation of body worn camera when they take out their taser. So for now, those are on 2 different instances. But we upgraded to the AB4 so that we could take advantage of those. And where it is a lease service, the cameras are replaced every 30 months. So it's not like any project I've dealt with before. So that's kind of a brief overview. Happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Jamie?
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I have a few questions.
Sure.
You mentioned the Capture app. That means that the camera, if I heard you right, also operate like a recorder when someone need to give a statement of anything.
Right.
Right? It happened to me. I had to give the statement and there was a recorder there. So it's a multifunctional tool.
Right.
Thank you. What is the DEMS? DEMS.
The DEMS is a digital evidence management system. So it's Axon calls it evidence.com. So it's the software. That's where all our evidence is housed from the members. So I can say, I looked briefly last week. I think there was over 800 pieces of evidence just from this one detachment in the short time frame. Another great point that you bring up, our DEM system is unlimited storage with the service that we have. So we can keep uploading data, which is kind of unheard of. That's one of the first things that come up. So it's basically the software system that we use to upload and manage all our evidence and also share it with other police agencies or the Crown. So if our Crown, and we're working with the Crown so that they can eventually get onboarded to Axon Justice, instead of using DVDs, CDs, USBs, they'll be able to log into this DEMS or digital evidence management system on their side, and we could share the evidence. They won't have access to all our evidence, but we could share with them, say, a selected case that we put together to make it a lot faster for sharing.
Thank you. Could you define the Crown?
The Crown. So municipal agencies across Nova Scotia, provincial and federal.
Thank you.
Prosecution services.
The DEMS as a software, is it hosted on how can I call it? Public traditional servers, or is it hosted on a private police RCMP server?
I believe it would be on their server. I'd have to get back to you on the specifics. I can say it has to be in Canada, though.
Okay, it's different only because,
Yeah.
hacking, cybersecurity, the difference. A lot of people today are going into private service, even when they have public companies. I was curious about this piece, which is very delicate information.
Well, part of this service is also the IATO. So that's the interim authority to operate or the authority to operate. So there are all these security controls that have to be approved. So even to go through a cloud base, that could seem a bit scary as well. This is one of the first systems that we're using that is cloud based. So it had to meet all the security standards. This is, I believe, 600. It's a very lengthy document that they had to go through with all these quality and security controls. So it did meet the requirements by the RCMP. And I say I started in July 2022. They've been working on the security piece and getting those approvals before I started since 2020. Yeah. They wanted to roll it out a lot faster, but that's a big thing with the federal government, getting those approvals.
Thank you. I appreciate if you just kindly can get back to us on the server, if
Sure.
it's police owned or is cloud and is, I don't know, Google or whichever other big behemoth of cloud storaging.
Where we're leasing it, I assume it's them, but I'd like to just, as far as the technology piece is concerned, make sure I'm giving you the right language. So I'll confirm and get back.
Thank you. Is the camera, as of when the moment that is double tapped, going online or is it local? Online means, is it transmitting on some bandwidth or frequency?
No, and that's a really good question that was missed. So it stays on the camera. So it's just holding the information on the camera until the camera's docked at the detachment. And that's when it would upload to the digital evidence management system. So it's going to be using the bandwidth in the detachment.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. And because my next question would have been, what is the bandwidth in gigahertz or megahertz? Because new evidence is popping up about the danger of low emission, high frequency for the human body. So my next question was about the security and safety of the body warners, body warners of this piece of element right here in front of the heart. But that's relieving me from the next question. I'm really happy to hear that it's local. You mentioned active investigation equal seatbelt off. Means that when they are traveling, either is the camera in the car doing the work or the camera is off. You said if it's an investigation, means seatbelt off, camera on. Yes or no? Meaning, as soon as the seatbelt is off, is an investigation, or investigation is when the officer decides to begin the investigation?
It's not always seatbelt off, camera on. That's something we put as far as like for training for their muscle memory. This is another tool. They have to manually turn it on. So, it's something for them to get used to. And we're kind of using that phrase so that they could think about it and remember to turn it on. It's a good point. But when I'm doing my training or when we're talking to members, I would say it doesn't have to be just when you take off your seatbelt. If you're on a call for service that seems like an urgent call, there could be a lot going on. They could turn it on en route to that call, pick up dispatch. What if they're, they may not turn it on when they arrive on scene. They'll have so much on the go. They want to make sure they capture it. They could turn it on scene as long as they could substantiate why they turned it on. Does it make sense that they're capturing this evidence on the way to a call? I think they could definitely say why, because it could speak to why they responded to the call in the manner that they did. It depends on really where the call for service is as well. So they could arrive at an area, but then they have to walk through the woods for a while to get there. It could be a kilometer. So then we don't necessarily have to see that kilometer walk through. So I would say it's generally if they got to a home, it would be, and they're responding, it would be seatbelt off, camera on, but not always. So it's as soon as they initiate that conversation, and they should be letting people know as well that they're recording. Even though it has the lights, when they're able to do so, they should be advising the public that they are recording. And we also have cards, wallet cards that have a QR code, and it gives the policies so that people, members of the public, can view that on their phone.
Thank you. Thank you. I ask because I know that you need clues in order to create muscle memory to do something. So seatbelt off was sounding like a muscle memory cue. But thank you for clarifying what the investigation means.
Thanks for the questions.
Now I have the final question
Sure.
and the $1 million question, probably more than that. What is the cost of this to the taxpayers?
So it's approximately $3,000 per member per year. So that would include the service, it includes the fee of my team, and that lease service fee. So that's all the, what my team's doing, the training, the storage, everything all in one. If the camera breaks, it's not order a new camera and get a bill. This is all included in that lease service.
Oh, okay. So it's not about dividing software and hardware. It's all in one.
Exactly.
Everything that's included in that, the storing, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Jane?
Thank you. I just would like you to expand a little bit on the community aspect. You said that people would be given a link if they wanted to upload a video. I'm just wondering, why would someone want to do that? What are you looking for when you're asking people to do that?
Oh, that's a great question. So we trained members in a traffic area, and they attended a scene, and there was actually dash cam footage, and they were able to send a link to them with their email address, and the person was able to upload it. They had actually had it on their phone, and they sent them the link. They were able to click on it and just drop it right in there for the investigation. It could be photos if they witnessed something. It could be a video if they witnessed a significant event or something that happened. A lot of times people use their phone as if it is like a recording. If, a heated argument happened, or sometimes it's for evidence of an event that happened. Yeah. Or I have seen motor vehicle accidents, and schools are really a big one. Photos or events that happened at school.
Any more questions for Jamie and before we let her go? Seeing none, thank you for coming, Jamie. You can stay for the meeting if you want, or whatever you want to do.
My contact info is in there. Please don't hesitate to reach out anytime.
We'll just get you shut off your mic if you don't mind for you depart. Thank you very much. Up next is business arising from the minutes. RCMP of 5 multi-year financial plan. Dave?
I can't recall why we have the multi-year financial plan in from the previous meeting minutes as old business. Typically that comes up for financial planning for municipality during budget planning sessions is when we do those presentations.
Gotcha. Sounds good. We'll carry on. Move past that one. So up 10, West Hants RCMP quarterly report. Staff Sergeant Ferguson. Go ahead.
May I?
Yeah.
I might have missed something at the beginning when we were going through from the oath, and I think it's been delayed, postponed,
Jane, so.
not ours.
Nope, you're sworn in already.
Oh, from last time. Okay, got it. Perhaps I should have added to the agenda at the beginning, but I was thinking about the oath and this slipped my attention. I was reading through the numbers and I remember why the multi-year financial planning was requested. And I actually can refresh on that quickly. I think I was highly interested, even if I might have expressed it confusedly, into seeing previous to 2020, what was the rate of RCMP members out of service. Right now, I think we have 6 5.5, and then we had the discussion last time about replacement, what that was costing, the $300 a day to have it coming. I would love, I put it here, you chair, tell me how do we do this? If it's a motion, what is it? Okay. I have not clear yet on the procedure. I would love to know in the previous years, going back before 2020, before COVID vaccines, what was the rate of illness or whatever is called in technical terms when a police officer is not on duty or is off duty for medical leave. Because I remember the number impressed me over a station of 2023 elements. I might be wrong now, I don't remember the numbers. 6 members off duty. How do we do that? How do we request that? Probably that was the reason why I was asking the multi-year. But in reality, my interest is in understanding if it's normal to have 6 officers off duty now, and what was the standard 10 years ago or 12 years ago.
Do you have that information with you, Dave, or something you got to bring back next time?
It's something that I can definitely come back with.
Great.
And I think part of that question is going to feed into a topic that's going to come up later on in the meeting, that there is information that I've pulled together in relation to resourcing for West Hants and what we refer to as the full-time equivalent utilization, which is one of the numbers that we see come up in the quarterly report that we track on a regular basis, is a big piece of that feeds that information. For me, I've gone back to 2020 after amalgamation because it's difficult prior to that to go back where we were operating under 2 separate detachments. Obviously the town detachment and then what we refer to as Windsor Rural. So that information may be available in relation to the number of members that what we refer to as the ODS rate or off-duty sick.
What do you call it?
ODS is the term that we use internally, which accounts for the members that are off-duty sick at any given time. So it should be available if I go back and ask for it prior to amalgamation in 2020. But my baseline in relation to resourcing that I would be relying on is typically post-amalgamation 2020 moving forward.
Thank you. Sure. I understand the difficulties. I didn't know the amalgamation pickle in that. If it's possible, that would be highly appreciated in any case. Thank you.
I can definitely look into it.
Okay, we'll move down to West Hants RCMP quarterly report. Staff Sergeant Ferguson.
All right. Organizational structure hasn't changed. And if we jump to 1.1, the full-time equivalent utilization for the established positions. Below the table, I have a breakdown of the number of members, what I would refer to as the number of impacted positions and the reason that position was impacted. So during the quarter, we had a total of 6 regular member positions that were impacted, either by the member being off for medical reasons, one being a temporary reassignment of duties as in relation to a conduct process. And if we look at the 19.96, so that's based on the established positions, the total being 24. That number would typically be lower than that for this quarter. However, during the quarter, we actually had 2 members placed in positions that were already occupied. And the reason for that is based on the number of impacted positions. We were managing outgoing transfers and I couldn't release those members. And there were other factors that come into play in relation to the timing of their transfers. But it was definitely a welcome addition for me to have 2 more members to place in those positions, because it makes shift scheduling much easier when you have the additional resources. And the paragraph at the bottom of that page kind of explains that in a little bit more detail. West Hants fleet, no change to the fleet. We'll see in the financial report for P9, we do still have 2 vehicles within our fleet that are identified to be replaced during this fiscal year. They're expected to be put into service prior to March 31st. And if we move on to the financial report, I recognize some of these numbers. The table may be a bit small to see. So I review this on a regular basis with Kyla Dow, who is our senior financial analyst. Nothing really significant that jumps out at me that is any surprise to me. Repair of vehicles is up due to the fact that we did have 1 minor collision that was repaired, a police vehicle involved in a collision that had to be repaired, that was costed off to the current year's budget, which resulted in a bit of an increase. It's always a struggle with our vehicles. Typically, we rotate them through the mechanic shop on a regular basis. A lot of wear and tear because they are driven significant kilometers in the run of a day. So there is a cost obviously associated with maintaining them up to an appropriate standard for the work that we do. Kit and clothing. Last year, we received 2 members through the Experienced Officer Program. The cost related to all of the kit and clothing they're required to do the job came back to our budget. And during this year, we received an additional member through the Experienced Officer Program. I would say, based on where we're at right now, it's not a significant impact on our budget, but we do see somewhat of a variance there. And if we move to under operating costs, professional and special services, Corps of Commissionaires, bit of a variance there. Typically, this is associated to the number of prisoners that we have in custody throughout the year. And unfortunately, it's difficult to predict that. And that can vary significant from year to year. And I know the question came up about costs related to body worn cameras. If we go to the further down in the operating costs, there's 3 lines where you can see balance to spending cap. Body worn cameras is one of the lines, and you can see the forecast for this year of the implication on the current year's budget. And the cost shared under indirect expenditures. These are the shared costs for the various programs and services that are administered internally within the RCMP. And if we go to grand total, again, we can see under employee category for FTEs, the forecast, as well as the actual full-time equivalent utilization for P9. And when we look at the summary, the bottom line essentially shows the contract partners or the municipality's cost share for the RCMP policing services for the year. You can see the forecast as well as the projected variance, which would be a surplus. So it's a projected surplus of approximately $500,000 at the end of the year. And that surplus has been pretty consistent year over year since amalgamation.
Mark?
Just for clarity, perhaps for the new committee member, it's always a point of clarity. We have 24 members. As a municipality, we are invoiced for 22. I think 2 would be part of the additional officer program. Dave, just for confirmation.
So 24 employees altogether. That includes 22 regular member positions, as well as the extra 2 that make up the 24 are the public servants, detachment
Okay.
assistants that work out of the office. So total would be 22 uniformed general duty members. We move on to point 4, calls for service. No surprise there. What accounts for the difference in the numbers between the quarter between this year and last year is related to the proactive road safety initiatives and the contacts that members have had in relation to motor vehicle act offenses on the road. And we'll see that on the next page for the crime statistics. So for the table, it's always a good thing when we see minuses in the amount of change. That means those numbers have been reduced. And I'd like to associate that to our offender management program that we have in the detachment. Prolific offenders in relation to property crime, serious persons offenders. What we do is we create files that members are proactively checking these individuals to ensure that they are complying with the court-imposed conditions. And we like to think that kind of keeps them in check, that, if we're dealing with somebody that's responsible for a rash of break-and enters or thefts from vehicles, once they're on conditions, we make sure that we do monitor them on a regular basis, which in turn can reduce those types of occurrences moving forward.
Chair, if I may have a small question. What's theft under?
Theft under would be
The meaning?
would be the theft of any item under a specific dollar value. So under $5,000, and there are specific punishments that are associated to that versus punishments for anything of a value over $5,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And if we look at the traffic portion of the report, you'll see there's a significant increase in speeding violations, insurance violations, majority of the offenses under traffic. And again, that's related to our proactive initiatives, trying to keep members on the road, maintain that visibility in the community, and having contacts with violators on the highways. Calls for service map, again, simply highlights where the majority of the calls for service are that we deal with. And again, as with any community, typically your calls for service are where your population is going to be more dense. Number 7, a road safety report. So the members had conducted 98 check stops at different locations throughout West Hants throughout the quarter. Members had issued 391 summary offense tickets and 332 written warnings during the quarter. And in addition to that, problematic areas or areas of concern during the quarter were identified as Bog Road as well as Holmes Hill Road. So we conducted strategic traffic enforcement in those locations, and the results for those were reported back to the board chair.
Jane, you got a question?
Thank you. I just have a question about your last point in number 7, where you say you met with the mayor, the CAO, and the chair of this committee and gave them an update on some road safety initiatives. Now, this committee was supposed to meet in October, and we didn't have that meeting. So we don't have the stats or your quarterly report from June to October. So this quarterly report is from October to December. So are we ever going to see a quarterly report for June to October? Like, could that come at the next meeting? Could that be included?
Yes,
Don't want to make more work for you, but we should have had that meeting in October. And
yes. No,
okay.
I do have those statistics for that period as well. The same report as what's provided at each quarterly meeting. So that can be forwarded and reviewed for the next meeting.
Great, thank you.
Also under road safety, members apprehended and charged 9 individuals during the quarter for impaired operation. And prior to Christmas, you may have noticed an increased presence in certain areas within the region. We had one of our members that conducted an initiative to try to identify and apprehend impaired drivers on the road. Obviously, leading up to the holidays, impaired driving, as it is throughout the year, is a concern. But what they had done was use the mandatory alcohol screening legislation that allows them to request breath samples from anybody that's operating a motor vehicle. And as a result of that, that night we had Traffic Services, which is the unit out of New Minas, come up and assist. And there would have been no less than, I'd say about 14 officers within West Hants that were focused just on trying to apprehend impaired drivers. And as a result, we did locate 1 impaired driver, suspended driver, and 6 roadside screening device breath tests were administered that night as well. We move to our general investigation section. There's multiple highlights within that section to indicate what I refer to as our GIS investigator has been doing throughout the last quarter. One of the more significant highlights being that the investigator liaised with Woodstock Police Service as well as our own federal policing in Ontario in relation to ongoing investigation related to child luring, where the victim is from West Hants. I can say that a suspect has been identified in Ontario, and that investigation was also supported by our digital forensic services unit within Nova Scotia. And that investigation is ongoing as of now. Our GIS investigator also works very closely with our street crime enforcement unit, and throughout the quarter assisted with multiple Controlled Drugs and Substances Act search warrants related to several investigations throughout the quarter. And Constable Richard Collins, our school safety resource officer, continues to be busy within the schools within West Hants. And he's also contributed to many of the check stops that I've referred to on the previous table in school zones throughout West Hants. And another key point within that, I believe, has been identified in some correspondence that we're going to get to, is in relation to a school zone in Brooklyn on Highway 14. So Richard's been engaged in that from fairly early on and is working closely with the two schools as well as Department of Transportation Infrastructure Renewal and the Annapolis Valley Center for Education in relation to the issues that have been identified in that area. And Richard's typically busy throughout this quarter. He's attended multiple community events as well, including the Parade of Lights, the food drive, and the Remembrance Day ceremony. And I managed to get a picture in there of Richard and his sled dogs at the Parade of Lights. The Street Crime Enforcement Unit, which for the information of anybody new to the board, the Street Crime Enforcement Unit, as well as our School Safety Resource Officer, those positions are funded provincially, so not billed to the municipality. They're funded through the Additional Officer Program by the province. And I can't say enough about having those additional resources and specialized resources that are dedicated to specific investigations. Now, essentially for the last year, one of those positions has remained vacant as a result of a transfer of one of the two members to another unit. The replacement for that position within the unit was identified from within West Hants Detachment. But again, if I come back to our general duty resources, I wasn't in a position to release the member from general duty to go back to move over to that position until their replacement was on the ground here. And again, that comes back to the 6 impacted positions that we were dealing with throughout the year. I can say that one of the two positions or one of the two members that I had referenced earlier that were placed in positions that were already filled is one of the replacements for this member. So as of February 3rd, that member will be moving over to the street crime unit position. And in November, street crime unit, along with assistance from the GIS unit, conducted a targeted vehicle stop in Windsor, and a 26-year-old male was arrested for drug trafficking. Subsequent search of the vehicle produced a quantity of cocaine, marijuana, replica firearm, and a quantity of cash. And that investigation was initiated or part of a follow-up to several investigations that we've had now in relation to activities occurring on Victoria Avenue. Number 11, Police Advisory Board initiatives. So several meetings ago, it was identified that there's concerns in relation to police visibility in certain areas within the municipality. So this was one way that we looked at how we can increase that. It goes hand in hand with our road safety initiative. So a way that I said that I would be able to report back to the board to demonstrate that we're trying to be proactive about getting out into the rural areas is through the map that we can see. So what it is essentially is the members going out to certain locations and conducting check stops and being present in those areas. I can say it's not quite as it didn't target certain areas that we did the previous quarter. But again, it's a work in progress, and it's something that we have to be on top of constantly and balance with competing priorities and calls for service.
Jane?
So I have a question about the your little map, the site ID number compared with the frequency. So what does the frequency mean? The number of citations or tickets you issued at that site?
So the site ID would be the specific location on the map, and then the frequency would be the number of times that the members have been at that location for one of the road safety related reasons. So usually check stop.
So could you expand on that the next time to say how many at that location you issued speeding tickets or seatbelt tickets or impaired charges for, rather than that's how many times that they were there at that location, but what was the result of their attendance at that location?
So typically, if we look back at the previous reports, there was a road safety report that was included in that specific to West Hants, which normally covers that off, like the locations of where we're apprehending impaired drivers. I believe it also highlighted where serious collisions were occurring. So we have a data analyst that's their role is to pull that information and provide it to me. I normally have it in these reports. The problem is that analyst has been reassigned to another investigation for the time being. So I do hope to get back to the point where I can pull that specific information that you're looking for and provide that to the board.
Jamie?
Hey, Dave, just real quick question. Can you just refresh me a little bit? Is there any beyond our budget? I know it's kind of backing up a little bit, but it speaks to, you said about the street crime unit there. Other external services, is there an additional charge for the municipality? Like, for example, air services, dive unit. If major crime has to get involved with something, is there a further, it's not all encompassing, I don't think. I'm just trying to take it back from the old town contract. And I just want to make sure I got it straight in my head.
Yep, absolutely. Though it's a great question. And the majority of those, what we would refer to as support services. So air services, our digital forensic service unit, the forensic lab, our emergency response team, the dive team, those costs fall under what would be the shared costs. So there's if we go back to the budget slides, any of those shared costs, that's all built into the cost for what the municipality is billed for the year. So it's if we have to use those services, there's no additional cost that's incurred by the municipality for them at this point in time.
Just one more too, while we're on the subject, and it comes back to the traffic enforcement, which that was quite a nice increase in the ticketing for the speeding, I thought, based on those numbers. What I've come to find when I was on the election trail, that didn't work out very well, but the people just didn't know the proper way to report. They were scared to call 911 because they thought they might get in trouble because they didn't know what, after all these years, they didn't know what necessarily a 911 call consisted of at several doors. Is there a clearinghouse or a place where they can get, like, in the fire world, it'd be like a fire prevention education material for citizens? Is there something like that from the RCMP side that somebody could gather that kind of information, like how to make their property safe for people? They're worried about people maybe skulking around at night. Well, removing some foliage, putting some lights up, that type of thing. Is there any clearinghouse for that kind of information for the public beyond actually calling a member to the door?
We try to be as proactive as we can be through our strategic communications unit that they have strategies and they do have a lot of reference material that's available in relation to the issues that you have identified. Occasionally, I know I've shared some of it with Shalina or with the municipality that, we have the ability to share that through the municipality's site as well. Definitely something we can look at, focusing on and hopefully increasing moving forward so that we can make more of that information more accessible for the public.
I actually appreciate Jamie point. I want to reinforce on that concept. I think in the Strategic Communication Center, I totally see what you, Jamie, are talking about in terms of having the public having a move toward instead of a move away. It's very clear what the fire department does, the information, and it's easy. It's just all about fire. Now, it's a way more complex issue in the case of the RCMP, but definitely more pamphlets and more communication for having people trust, move toward instead of move away, fear, ostracization. I don't know if you use that word, ostracizing the RCMP, and anything that can create this positive communication and a clarity of what are the functions and the many functions that the station does. I see it as an enormous benefit, increasing that thing. Thank you.
And in response to that, I would say, as always, I think we've reiterated here several times. If anybody has any questions or concerns, or they're in doubt about, whether or not they should call the RCMP, or, whether or not it's even within our mandate to manage, I would say just make the call, and we'd be more than happy to answer the question, or, if it does evolve to a call for service or an investigation, at least then we have the information and we'll be able to manage it accordingly.
I have a question for you, Dave. What's the chance of getting an RCM West Hants Information Day set up sometime?
We can absolutely do that.
Wait for a response from you. You pick a day.
Perfect.
Okay.
So after the map, move on to point number 12, which is significant, noteworthy, and there's multiple points within that section that I provide a breakdown of the types of calls for service. Typically, the more serious ones, or the ones that the community wants to see how we're managing them. So it just provides a breakdown of the number that we've received and the end results of those investigations. A couple more key points to highlight. We continue to work with the municipality and sit on the Diversity Inclusion Committee. We continue to meet with the Posse Chow Group, as well as multiple other stakeholders on an initiative for a non-police mental health crisis response model for West Hants. And we do typically see, as we do in other detachment areas across the province, significant volume of calls for service related to individuals in crisis. We do recognize that not every instance would require a police response. So if there's other supports within the community that can be offered to these individuals, as well as the follow-up, oftentimes we're involved in the initial response, but the idea behind this model is it would provide additional supports to individuals as well after the fact. Sergeant Doyle continues to remain engaged with the local Chamber of Commerce in relation to any issues within the business community. Obviously, we've seen the body worn camera presentation. Another significant highlight, coming back to our road safety initiatives, in November, a 22-year-old male was arrested and charged with multiple criminal code impaired driving offenses. And that stems from a collision that occurred in 2023 in Windsor Forks, where 2 individuals died as a result. I can say that this was a very time-consuming and lengthy investigation. I'm extremely proud of our members from the detachment that managed that investigation. And to come back to Jamie's point, the support services that were involved in that. So we had our collision analysis and reconstruction service, the forensic laboratory service, as well as our interview assistance team. Another key highlight during this quarter is we finally transitioned to our electronic disclosure system, e-disclosure. So that's where any occurrences that we have that result in criminal charges being laid. Previously, we would provide disclosure by, there would be multiple packets of all the documents, copies of the documents that were involved, all of the evidence, the statements, any photos, video would be burned to a CD. And that's where, during the body worn camera presentation, she discussed the ability for us to have all of this evidence digitally. So that all is compiled now into one digital package that gets transferred to Crown Counsel for court purposes. Any additional questions?
Any more questions for Dave on the report? All right, seeing none, it looks like you're off the hook on that one. Up next is new business lights in the school zones. Who's that?
Dave was going to address that one. I can set it up perhaps. We do have a piece of correspondence which is connected to this area in general, although I think it speaks to the South Rawdon area as well. But we had a counselor raise a concern some months ago about, in particular, it was a Brooklyn area. And I think there's some correspondence in there back and forth between our traffic authority, Troy Burgess, and others about the jurisdiction of the road being the Nova Scotia Public Works and not the municipality. Although the municipality continues to be approached about the safety and concern of traffic and the speed of traffic in the school zones. So one of the topics came up as a potential solution was the traffic signs, the digital signs, which would show the moving speed of the vehicle. And in this case, council and committee or community members' perception of that being an effective tool. I think we've approached the province different times about how many they have and where they put them, and haven't always had immediate feedback or follow-up from them with the placement because of other priorities. And the municipality has an inventory of those things as well. So it could be for this committee to, and perhaps Dave, with added information from you about any speed violations and or traffic or school related safety approaches that you may have. But how we might be able to recommend to council, this committee feels it's what they'd like to do, recommend to council, some of these measures, including the additional purchase of speed signs, if that's something that this committee felt would be effective and something they want to recommend, or any other measures. But perhaps you could add to that piece about any traffic violations and or, observations that you're making. And then if there's any other things that could help, any additional resources or approach you might recommend.
So I was made aware of this concern when the initial correspondence was sent. This was one of the topics that I had referred to that our school safety resource officer was engaged in and has been from the onset since we received the correspondence. So part of that was to take a look at what the issue was. From my understanding of it, it's related to the volume of traffic in that area during drop-off pickup hours, and I guess the safety concerns that creates for children crossing the road. From my understanding, there's no identified crosswalks between the two schools. We have conducted traffic enforcement in that area. So Constable Collins, during the times that were identified as being problematic in that area, he's been there conducting speed zone enforcement, watching for violations to try to focus on the enforcement aspect of it. That hopefully is a deterrent for violators moving forward. The idea being that if people get used to seeing a police car in that school zone on a regular basis, they're going to be slowing down prior to coming into the school zone and obey the speed limits. We do recognize enforcement is only a small piece of that. So that's where Richard is engaged with the Center for Education, as well as Nova Scotia Public Works, TIR, in relation to the issue. I don't know, I guess, where that currently stands, but I guess my feedback on that would be that for the speed signs, any addition to that area would be of benefit. And again, recognizing it's Nova Scotia Public Works that's responsible for managing that portion of the roadway, assigning the speeds. If there's anything they can do for traffic calming measures in that area, would ultimately be their responsibility and their decision to make at the end of the day.
Sure enough. Any more comments on that? Jane?
Understand what you say, that Public Works is in charge of traffic calming measures, but is there not a way that council can ask for specific types of calming measures? I've seen them in the United States. I've seen them in Ottawa on streets that are notoriously noted for speeders, and they have, I don't know what the technical term is, but they look like a piece of foam, and it stops them from passing. So they can't pass, so they have to slow down. They can't speed up because these things are in the way, and it just forces them to do exactly what they're meant to do, and that is not speed. So, but unless someone is asking Public Works to do these types of measures, I don't see that they're would do them on their own initiative. So I'm wondering if that's something we should be asking council to investigate when they look at their budget. Not that municipality is going to pay for it, but at least they would be aware of exactly how much it costs if Public Works were to come back and say, no, that's too expensive.
We can send it forward. Also write a letter to the MLA, Province of Nova Scotia, requesting some speed signs as well. So we can, Jamie?
Is that a motion we would make to council to
You'd
make
have to
that
make a motion,
recommendation? Then I would so move that council approach the province via the MLA to ascertain any traffic calming measures up to and including the speed signs for that troubled area.
Moved by Jamie, and is a seconder?
Seconded.
Second by Guido. Any questions on the motion? All in favor? All opposed, motion carried. Done. So. Yep. So next up is the correspondence, which we just touched on. Did you want to touch on it anymore, Mark?
Just more specifically, I guess this is probably on to you, Dave, from an operations point of view, the person identifies in their particular area along Route 1 in the Lakelands and up through the Rawdon area, as I recall, just about the concern about the speed. And then their suggestion, some of the solutions may be the increased presence of the RCMP to I guess do your traffic observations as you've noted, and or the possibility of reducing the speed limit in that area is what they would highlight. And I'm just simplifying, but again, the correspondence has been part of your package. So something for you to consider operationally, and perhaps another piece of advocacy if the committee feels that it's fit, as this individual highlights a concern in their area about vehicle speed and so forth.
Dave?
So I looked into this and I mean, I treat it no different than most other requests that we get from the community. When an area is identified as being problematic or there's concerns in relation to speed, we would conduct strategic traffic enforcement in that area over a period of time and hopefully quality issue. And as I've said before, sometimes it allows us to gather more information where oftentimes it's perceived speeds versus what the reality is. And once we have a radar in that area, oftentimes what we're finding is it's not the significant volume of offenders as what is perceived, but it does give us the ability to conduct enforcement in that area. When I did look at it on the map, I was surprised to see, based on the boundaries for the municipality between West Hants and East Hants, that we're ultimately responsible for a very small portion of that particular road between civic numbers 159 and 668, just based on how the boundaries lie. So that's something that we can work with our traffic services unit, who are the provincial units, to put efforts into enforcement in that area, as well as I can communicate with my counterpart in East Hants as well to hopefully be able to increase a presence in that area.
That's great. Thanks. See nothing there. Next up is public participation. I don't see anybody in the public tonight, so that one's pretty simple. In camera, we do not have anything. So our next meeting date, the date that usually falls on is Easter, I believe. So we got two proposed dates there, which would be April the 14th or April 28th. What works better for you, Dave?
The later date would work better because it gives me an opportunity, again, to pull together all of the information that I need to prepare the report.
Correct. Was everybody good with the 28th of April?
Okay.
Seeing head nods. So our next meeting would be the 28th day of April, 2025. Looking for-
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
just before you call for adjournment, and Dave has also identified that part of his fiscal planning and resources this year that he may have an additional ask in addition to what we might call our typical budget process or a budget allocation or charges from the RCMP. So what we might be doing now is giving you advance notice that if the next meeting doesn't line up with the council budget deliberations, that if he is asking for additional resources, that my suggestion is that the police advisory board had the first opportunity to kind of see what it is that he's proposing so that council can at least have your opinion from an advisory point of view. So the next meeting might work out, or it may be that we would call a meeting in advance so that this group could see in advance of budget deliberations what it is that Staff Sergeant's speaking to. So nothing confirmed yet, but we may have to call another meeting to help with the budget process. So just advance notice. Thank you.
So go easy in the budget process. Looking for the motion to adjourn. Moved by Jamie, seconder, Jane, all in favor? All opposed, motion carried. Thank you very much.